Hey, trendsetters. We're here again on Community Conversations. I'm here tonight with Natasha Christopher. Natasha Christopher has a story to tell us, you guys. She's the mother of another unalived child due to gun violence. And her story is one that unfortunately we have to hear. One of the initiatives that Trendsetters is supporting our initiatives for anti-gun violence. And by hearing these mothers' stories allows the desensitization of how um, people perceive people who have lost children, lost family members to gun violence. We have to, it's becoming normalized, and we have to, that's nothing that's normal about anything. So before I say anything more, I'm going to, introduce Miss Christopher and have her tell us a little bit about her story and her journey. Welcome, Miss Christopher. Welcome, Natasha. How are you?
Hi, good afternoon. Hi, I am okay. I tell people today's a good day. I woke up this morning, everything else is fixable.
Everything else is fixable.
Yes, I woke up
Like
this
that.
morning, so I thank God for that.
I like that. I like that. Thank you so much. Thank you for being willing to come on and tell your story. Thank you for supporting trendsetters in our initiatives, anti-gun violence initiatives. I know that this is not easy for you, and I appreciate your efforts and everything that you're going to share here tonight. Um, Tell us what brings us here tonight.
So, what brings us here is my amazing angel who is in heaven. His name is Akil Christopher. My son, Akil Christopher, was shot on June 27th, 2012. That's the last day of school. I will never forget that day
Mm.
because for me, um, that was the last day I spoke to my son. He was so excited. Every summer, he gets to go spend the summer with his dad and his grandparents who lives in Crown Heights, Frankie and Sheila soon, and his dad, Kyle. And he would get to go to spend the summer with them. I remember that day, that morning, his grandmother had picked him up the day before that. I said bye to him. I said, I'll see you later and enjoy your summer. And the really last conversation I really had with my son is, I'll pick you up after your birthday. And he was like, okay, mom, bye, love you. I spoke to him on June 27th also. He was like, I called him and I was like, are you going to school? And he was like, no, I'm not going to school today. But Nana, he called his grandma, Nana. He was like, Nana is going to take me to the school and I'm going to go get my report card. And then I'm going to go see my psychotherapist because he had a psychotherapist because he was diagnosed with ADHD. So
Okay.
he had to make sure he had his meds for the summertime. So he had to go see his psychotherapist. And he called, and that's the last conversation. The last conversation I had with Akil, he was at the school. He was excited to get his report card. He was like, mom, the grades were good. It's what you were expecting. So I was like, okay, I'll see the report card when you come home and all of that. And then about 4 p.m., I received a phone call from the therapist saying Akil never showed up for his appointment.
Mm.
And I remember calling grandma, and she said that they were running late. Something came up, they were running late. They were never able to make it to the appointment. So I called the doctor and I said to the doctors, he's not going to be able to make the appointment, but he still needs his meds. And she was like, okay, I'll reschedule his appointment, but I'll send his meds to the pharmacy. And that was the last conversation I had with Akil. Because again, this is something that I normally do. My son is off to spend the summer with his grandparents. I've never had to worry about my son. And I was happy for him. But I was
How
also
old was he?
happy.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
How old was he?
Akil was 14 then.
Okay.
Sorry, he was 14 then. So I was happy for my 14-year-old son. But I was also happy at the same time because now I had my 10-year-old son, which he's now 23. His name is Rashawn Christopher, who had just graduated he had recently graduated from elementary school and got into Philippa Schuyler. And
Wow.
that was a school for the gifted and talented, right?
That's
And I was like, I was so happy. I was so happy because I was like, okay. I'm getting myself, you're getting yourself ready because, you're getting yourself ready. I'm supposed to go with my son for orientation. So that night, because again, Aki was shot on the 27th that night. So picture this. He was shot on the 27th. So let me go back. Maybe I made a mistake. I spoke to him on the 26th because he was shot on the 27th, right? So I went to sleep that night. And you go to sleep, you make sure you make sure Rashawn is in bed. My youngest son, his name is Christopher. He was 5 then. I made sure that Christopher was in bed because I'm so happy because, hey, my son is going to a gifted and talented school. Yes. Something to brag about. He worked hard for that and he got in. Bam, I'm sleeping. It's going around 11 p.m. I received my phone rings. It's going around 11 p.m., probably going close to my phone rings. I heard, for me, it sounds like a young person. It wasn't a voice I know. Akila's shot. And I hanged up my phone because I was like, I don't know what these people calling about because I know where my son is. He's with his grandparents. Bam. Then I went back to laying in my bed. Then someone calls, Akil's grandmother calls my son's father phone and said, tell Tasha she has to get to the hospital because Akil is shot. So now I have to get up. Now I'm panicking. What are they talking about? I'm trying not to think the worst possible thing. That's all she said. Akil is shot. Get to the hospital. Okay, what hospital is Akil at? Brookdale Hospital. Okay, I went and I had to wake up the 2 kids because their dad was about to go to work. He works construction. He had to go to work. This was like So I was like, kids, get dressed. Now I have to jump in an Uber heading to Brookdale Hospital. I get to Brookdale Hospital. I will never forget this. I walked in to the emergency section of Brookdale Hospital to see all my family members there. There's my dad. There's my mom. There's my brother. There's Akil's dad, grandparents, sister. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I'm looking at everybody. But whilst I'm walking into the hospital, I'm seeing like a trail of blood on the floor. And I'm like, just looking, where is my son? Where is my son? Where is my son? Where is Akil? Nobody's saying anything to me. Then the curtain drapes, I hear in code blue, the curtain drapes opens for a quick second, who I can see laying there. My son laying there, dying. Doctors trying to resuscitate him, trying to bring him back to life. All I know, I got so mad. I went out into the hallway, shaking Akil's grandmother, like, what the hell happened to my son? What the hell happened to my son? What the hell happened to my son? I look back, there's staple in the back of my son's head. Someone shot my son. Someone shot my 14-year-old son in the back of his head. My 14-year-old child in the back of his head. What are you telling me? Are you crazy? In the back of my child's head?
Jesus.
I remember just being so angry and passing out.
God.
Being able, when I did wake up, okay, I know there was a bunch of conversations going on. A bunch of conversations was going on. Still, not knowing what really happened that night, what was going on, how did he end up shot? Grandma is not really talking to me. All I can tell you, for me, all I can remember is this doctor came through the ER section. Her name is Dr. Mary. Her name was Mary Baldoff. She was the head of the department of ICU. And this woman walked over to me and she came straight to me and she said to me, I don't know you, but I promise you, I'm going to do everything to save Akil for you. And that is what she said to me. This woman didn't know me from nowhere. She didn't, she just came in and saw me and came over to me. After having conversations with her later on, she said she just walked in and she said she knew she had to come to me and say something. And that's what she said. So the next 14 days would be hell, I'm telling you. I spent 14 days in ICU with my son, watching my son slowly die every single day before my eyes. It's the worst 14 day of my life. I never went home. I think I left the hospital one time. One of my friends came to get me to take a shower. Other than that, I spent every night there, every morning. I never left. I never ate anything. I can't even remember. I think just drinking sips of water. I couldn't eat. I couldn't, all I could remember just laying by my son's bedside, crying, bargaining with God. God, please, please save my son. If you save my son, my life or his life. That's what I said to God, my life for his life. And then, whilst he was there, he never regained conscious. He was hooked up to the monitors. The doctor was just constantly trying to figure out how they can save him. We were there praying. I mean, people were coming in from all over, just coming to pray with the family because, his family, they went to church and all the church people would come by. But I still didn't know what happened. And then I remember a detective came up to me and he was like, are you Akil's mom? And I said, yes, I'm Akil's mom. And he basically was telling me what happened. So apparently these kids, grandma allowed Akil and his 13-year-old cousin, again, Akil was 14, then Z was 13, to go to a high school graduation party in Bushwick. I tell people I lived in Bushwick back then. So he, Bushwick, the neighborhood that he got shot in, wasn't new. He is not like he didn't know where he was. He went to a high school graduation party and something happened at that graduation party. Somebody's phone was stolen. The parents called the cops. The party was shut down. And all I know, the detectives have said 7 kids were walking home. Alleged gang members approached these 7 kids. There was argument, altercation or something. Shots was fired and only my son was shot in the back of his head. All these kids, everybody ran. From what the police can tell and the doctor tried to put place, they believe that everybody ran on, they believe the reason Akil got shot is because they believe like he froze and when he decided to run, that's how because he was shot at close range, execution style.
My God. My God.
So they executed my 14-year-old son. These kids were minors. Whatever the detectives were able to apprehend all the kids who were running away from the scene. They were never able to apprehend the shooters, but the kids who were there with Akil that night, they questioned them. They listened to what they had to say. And basically they were like, Miss Christopher, we questioned them and they're minors and we cannot force them to talk.
Jesus.
So that is what took place. So my son, so I was like, okay, there's only one thing. I listened to that story. I was like, I said, detective, give me a card. I can't really deal with anything right now. Only thing I need to focus on right now is Akil. He's still here. I will never forget this. July 10th. Akil was born on July 10th, 1997. Akil took his last breath on July 10th, 2012. My son died on the day I gave birth to him.
Jesus.
I remember getting up that morning and the doctor calling me. They did a test on him on July 4th, you know. Apparently my mother told me they took him down and they were gonna do where they injected the dye to see if there had any brain function or whatever. I remember they took him, some doctors flew in because they were, you know, for me, I wanted to move him out of Brookdale, and Dr. Baldoff was like, no, I'll get some great doctors from Stony Brook to come. I'll get some doctors from Kings County to come. But he was in such a bad shape that they couldn't even move him or transport him anywhere else. I remember seeing her coming off the elevator, but for a quick second, when the elevator's door opened after she took him down to do that test, I saw her wipe her eyes, but I really, truly didn't pay it no mind. But I know she had a conversation with my mom later on. Mom never said really nothing to me until years later. But all I know, on July 10th, my son took his last breath, and Akil died on his 14th birthday. On his 15th birthday. And that made me so angry. That made me so angry. That's when I got so angry, got so mad, got so angry at the world, was so angry. We're just with everybody, just with God, because how could a God who I trusted and believed in and asked to save my son not save him? What kind of God would let my son die? And that's the day my life changed. On July, on July 10th, the day my son died. That's the day my life truly changed. And nothing in my life would ever be the same after that day. I tell people, they see me now and people say, you are strong, you're fierce, you're beautiful. But I tell people, it took a lot to even want to stand up and even fight. Your son is murdered, gun violence. These are things that I saw on the TV. And I would be so happy when you hear it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? And I look in the bed and I can see my kids. And then now when you say it's 10 p.m., you know where your children are, one of them is missing. So then I just got so angry. I made sure we buried my son. But then I took to the streets trying to figure out what happened to my son and how could a community be so okay with a young Black man being murdered and not even getting no answers. And the first thing once initial detective was assigned to me is, oh, your son was hanging out with some people he had no business be hanging out with, because you know how they always quick to label our Black young men to be in a gang. But you're telling me you never seen my son before. You fingerprinted my son, so he has no fingerprints. So you never seen my son before, and that is what are you trying to say? Because my son here is the victim. We didn't do nothing wrong. So why am I now feeling like I did something wrong? Or my child did something wrong? So besides trying to find out who murdered my son, I also had to fight our police department to make sure that they knew that Akil wasn't that type of kid, that he grew up in a home where he was loved by family members. He had people who cared about him. I'm saying, I'm not going to say here, I tell people all the time, who my children is when they're with me, I will never say that they're that person when they're with their friends. They're a whole different person. But I know what I instilled in my son. He was kind, he was loving, he cared about people. So I know what I instilled in him. But I tell people I'm not just standing here. I had rough patch, and those roads was not easy. There were days that I wanted to die and I gave up. And I didn't even care about those two children. They could have gone to hell because all I could have seen was my pain. You know, I thank God my father is now dead. My father had to move in with me to help me with the kids. I thank God for my family. I thank God for my mother, my brother. And, you know, I thank God for my dad who stepped in when I really needed him and helped me. But I tell people within grieving my son, 6 months later, me and the kids came home and found my father dead on my kitchen floor from a heart attack.
My God.
So I was like, my God, what more, what it is are you trying to do to me?
My God.
What more? I don't know what I have done to deserve all of this, but nobody deserves this much pain. Nobody deserves this much pain. And I tell people, when people saw me, I didn't care. I didn't care. I wasn't combing my head. There were days I didn't take showers. I wasn't eating. I didn't care about nothing else more than I wanted Akil to come back. That's all I cared about. And what people fail to realize is I had two kids who loved their brother. Christopher, my son was 5, the other one was 10, and they were also grieving. And this was something that we have never dealt with. How am I supposed to deal with this? How am I supposed to continue being a good parent? I feel like somebody took their hand and stick it in my chest and was squeezing all the oxygen out of me. How am I supposed to continue being a parent to these kids? I had one child who would go to sleep every night wetting his bed, crying for his brother to come back, waking up in nightmares. Our other son who was just, he would cry, but he was just so silent about everything. How am I supposed to help these kids? Because I didn't even know how to help myself. I didn't even know how to begin to help myself. All I know, I wanted answers about why this happened. What did I deserve to be, what did I deserve that God saw fit to take my child? What did I do wrong? That was the only thing that could have happened is my 14-year-old son being shot. And then, I started to do things. I wanted to do, I remember it, Akil was killed in July. In October, I did this big peace walk in Bushwick to bring attention, to just let the community know, you killed my child, but I'm not going nowhere until you give me some answers. I'm not going nowhere. And that's when I met Mama Maxine. I call her Miss Maxine Lewis, but I call her Mom. And that's when I met that amazing, great woman who came into my life exactly when I needed her. And she gave me the support, she gave me the love that I need. And she stepped up and really helped and tried to give me some guidance on how to navigate this new life. It wasn't really easy. I had two children who were failing in one was in elementary school and one was in junior high school. Two children who was failing for 2 years in school. And eventually I had to say, okay, get it together, but I didn't know how to get it together. And one day I went down and the same God that I was so mad at, I went down on my knees one day when the kids wasn't in here. They were at school. And I said, God, please, I am crying out to you. Please give me grace. Please help me. I can't do this alone by myself anymore. And I tell people the one thing I asked God for, even though I knew I was still angry at him, was grace. He gave it to me. I found the strength to pull myself together and seek the help that I needed mentally so I could be able to support my kids. So, you know, the journey hasn't been easy. It's still not easy. I still have a dead child whose case is unsolved. But I say, you know what, thank God, because I was able to meet people like I say Maxine E. Lewis, so many amazing mothers in this struggle. But the one person who also came into my life and mentored me was this pastor, and his name is Pastor Guilford Monrose. He came into my life exactly when I needed him, and he had this peer support group that he was doing in the church, in his church basement, and that's how I met most of the mothers. And I took pain and anger and turned it into purpose.
I
And
want, you know, that leads us to a whole another part of this. You know, it's so brave. This story is so truly touching, and I'm so glad that I'm so glad that you allowed us to share in this process. So we were talking about Pastor Gil Monroe's and how dynamic he is as a pastor, as a leader, as a friend,
and, and as a mentor,
as a mentor.
you know, I mean, God puts people into your life when you're supposed to meet them. I fully believe that because how Pastor Gil came into my life from my son's youth pastor, Nick, and his name is Nick Morgan. Nick Morgan was my son's youth pastor. He was there with us. He in the hospital when Akil got shot, and he's also a police officer. I think Nick is a detective now, if I'm not, but he is. Um, and I would call Nick, talking to Nick about that I'm still not getting no answers from the police, and I'm just complaining to Nick, but he's always been such a great person. He always listens to me. And he said to me, I know this man. I don't know how he knows all the people he knows, but I'm going to give you his number and you call him and tell him I said I sent you. So when he gave me Pastor Gil's number, I remember reaching out to Pastor Gil, and I reached out to him and he answered his phone, and we talked for a little bit, and he was going out of town, and he was like, I'll call you when I come back. And I was so angry back then. I remember him saying he'll call me when he come back. I don't know, maybe a week passed and I didn't hear from him. And I was like, I don't know what the hell Nick introduced me to this man for. He ain't gonna call nobody back. He just full of shit. And that's what I'm saying, saying to myself, he ain't call nobody back. He didn't keep his word. And eventually he did call me back. And I mean, when this man got me, he got me at the worst point in my life. Again, I was walking around so angry, bitter, just angry at the world, lashing out. I was cursing out everybody. I didn't care. I don't care if you are a detective, if you are a politician, I don't care who you was. My son is dead, and there's nothing that you can say to me to make me feel better. Just find out who murdered my son. And we talked and we had the opportunity. I started to go to little events he was having in his basement and still angry and mad. And then I remember one day eventually he who was the district attorney back then? I think his name was Hines. And he got this district attorney to come to his church. And I'm there and I'm angry. I'm ready to fight this little white man. I'm ready to fight him like, what are you here for? Basically, I need to find out who murdered my son. And Pastor Gill took me outside and he said to me, because I'm ready to blow up his church, he's like, listen to me. I know you're angry, you are hurt, but we're not having that. Just listen, trust me, I am here to help you. Okay, I did trust him and I did listen to him. And I am grateful because let me tell you something. I tell people, he is one of the first people I have met who was so genuine, who truly wanted to help me and didn't want anything from me. And when I say anything from me, because you meet people in this world who would take your story, your trauma, and use you to make them look better and profit off of it. And
Right.
Pastor Guilford wasn't one of those people. I trusted him with my life and my children's life. And I still trust him today.
Yes.
That man, let me tell you something. He is a special kind of, there's only one of him. I don't know. God broke the mold when he made him because I have never met nobody like him. I have met many people, but he is so genuine. Any rooms he has ever put me in is always was for the better of me. He gave me room. I told him, and when I speak about him, I tell him this. He gave me wings and I'm flying.
Mm.
Because when he met me, I was so broken. And he gave me a space with a bunch of mothers who are so amazing. I tell them all the time, I am not who I am today because I was able to do this alone. I am who I am because God saw fit to put the right people in my space that I needed to help me and to help my kids. And Pastor Guilford, and because I love to give people credit where it's due, especially Mama Maxine, especially Sandra, Patricia. There's so many mothers, Sherma. There's so many mothers, right, who came into my life, Miss Dixon. There's so many people and so many different organizations that came along the way. And I talk about the grassroots organization that truly care. The road wasn't easy because I was never an easy person to deal with. I am a no-nonsense person. I don't take shit from people.
I hear
you. Let me tell you something. I tell people already, I have already lost. And I you know what? Not lost. But, for me, one of the most important person in my life, he was flesh of my flesh, blood of my blood, my child. I gave birth to him. I carried him for 9 months. So I don't have nothing else to lose. So what you think you can do to hurt me anymore? So that's how I was navigating through life. But with the help and guidance from all these people, I am here standing today. And I can say thank you to God. And I can say thank you to Pastor Gill and all those people who helped me navigate life because I couldn't understand why parents wasn't angry that gun violence was happening in our community. And I promised myself, I would never, if God allowed me to ever meet any more mothers or put me in a space where I can help somebody else, I would never, never treat another person the way I was treated and how I felt. You know, because for a while I felt alone, felt lost, like nobody cared until I found that. I found Pastor Gill. I found the Mama Maxine, Sandra, and all these amazing mothers. So many names, too many to call. Because, you know, that's how I am standing here today, able to give back and pour back into my community and say, hello, I am going to be a voice for the voiceless. I have took pain and anger and turned it into purpose. And I say to you, it's because of Pastor Gill.
And God.
And God.
Let's talk about that. You know, that journey you shared with us, it was rough.
It is, and it's still rough, right? But it was rough back then. It was rough. I felt like, I still feel at times like it's the devil and God battling for my soul.
Mm.
And that's how I tell people, that's how I could describe it to them. Picture the devil and God battling for your soul.
In today's world, when we have this as a more consistent, a more regular, this is 3 murders a day, 4 murders, 5 murders a day. I mean, it's every day. And it's not only affecting the Brooklyn communities, the New York City borough communities, it's affecting all Black communities. I mean, and this is the reason why we're here. What is it that you want the community to know about gun violence? What is it that you can convey to the audience and to our listeners about the effect, about the reality, about what it is on the other side of the fence? We're not looking at it on the TV. You're living it. What is it? What is the message that you want people to know about gun violence and how it has affected you and families like yours?
You know, I say this, I want people to know gun violence has affected my life. It broke me. It took me to a place that I never thought I can come back from. But I also want people to know we don't have to live like this. Why are we living like this? We are killing our future doctors, presidents, lawyers. Why? It is so easy for us to sit back and watch each other kill each other. Where is the outrage in that? Like, you know, I sit back and I say to myself, why do we choose to live like this? My life isn't easy. My children's lives are not easy, but they're not picking up a gun. They're not picking up a knife, and they're not going out there and saying, hey, we're going to go rob, kill. We need to get back to where it was community. We have lost the sense of community. I remember growing up and the village was allowed to raise me. Okay? You think I could walk down the road and play, I'm twisting up myself and cursing, and Miss Sheila couldn't say something to me? She was allowed to say something to me. She was allowed to check me. And my mother was going to be okay with that. We are living in a society now where you cannot say nothing to nobody's children. Is either they're going to curse you out or you will get into you're going to, you probably could lose your life. And This is so wrong. This is not normal. I should have never had to bury my child. My child should have been burying me. We are losing our young people to gun violence for what? Over nothing that makes no sense. Young people do not know how to have a conversation. If you just sit down and have a conversation and agree to respect each other, you don't have to like what the next person say, and you don't have to agree. But that should not be a reason to take a life. That should not be a reason to take a life. I tell people today, like you see me right now, right? I am on here with you, but I didn't know how long it took for me to put myself together. I am still 12 years later, still living with the painful effects of gun violence. Okay? I have to go to therapy to make sure I protect my mental health. It
What
took
about
me
your
out,
children?
and my children.
How let's talk about that.
Mm,
Please, let's talk about your kids. I mean, you started this and said, my son got into Philippa Schuyler. And, those of you in the audience who don't know, Philippa Schuyler was one of the
back then, top
best of
school,
the best of the best
back,
junior high schools. I
yeah,
mean,
okay.
so you had to be in the top number for you to even be considered
To get into there.
to
Let me tell
get
you
into
something. I tell people I don't boast about my child, but my
it.
son is a bookworm, very smart, intelligent young man, and I was so proud of him. But Akil death broke him. His picture having to go. Your brother is killed, died in July, and you have to go back out to school in September and act like nothing has happened and pretend to have a normal life and go to school and be expected to do well because there's not a system set up in place where, hey, your child is murdered and these are all the resources that is available to you. Hey, okay, he'll get tutoring for free, things to help him. He was one of those kids. He was in therapy, but that didn't work for him. He went to therapy and he would talk to the therapist, and all he would say to the therapist, I see Akil as a perfect flower. That's all. Nothing would come out of that. The other child therapy did work for him, but this one son therapy didn't work for him. And I thank God. I mean, how he dealt with everything was inside. But how I had to parent him wasn't easy. I had to drop my son because I was so fearful that this could happen again. Drop my son off to school every day and pick him up every day. Had to make sure that, hey, if I'm running late, that I met this amazing woman in the community in Bushwick. She would do community work right not too far from where the school was, and he was allowed to go there and wait for me to pick him up. But so my kid's life wasn't easy, and like I said, I had this 5-year-old too. Well, he was lashing out. He was angry. He wanted the person dead who killed Akil. So we had to change his mindset now. So what I did with him is, okay, I want you to start writing things on paper and putting things on paper. And he took his pain and anger. And I told people, my 5-year-old back then became the first young person to speak out against gun violence and was on a platform speaking on it for Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. He was their junior ambassador. So that's the way he took his pain and gave it purpose. But these children, even though they were doing that, they wasn't okay.
Right,
They,
because you said they were failing. You
they
said
were
that
failing. And I had, okay, remember, I was working back then as I was doing two jobs, home health aide and medical assistant. Couldn't go back out to work. So now you have to go to the system to help you. A system that is not really for you to help you.
Right.
Had to get on food stamps to make sure the kids can eat. And
You
people don't
know,
understand how hard that was.
we talk a lot about re-victimization and how the same systems re-victimize you.
Yes.
Let us know what that means. What does that mean when the audience hears, we're being re-victimized? And, people act as though they don't understand because probably they don't understand. So let us know, what does that paint us a picture of what does that mean? What does that mean?
Like I said, re-victimized. Your son is murdered. And okay, a system. You are taught, hey, the police are there to help you. They're there to protect you. But they're the same person who are traumatizing you. Because now, hey, now you're making it look like now my son did something wrong when he lost his life. You're coming to me with all these questions, which I don't have answers to, which is your job to find out who murdered my son. It's not my job to find out those things. You go to get food stamps, you don't have no job, but you're denied. Okay? You are denied. And then you have to go through a fair hearing, and I thank God I was able to get it. I thank God I was able to get it. But I thank God there were also people who stepped up and helped. There's
What
nothing
about
set in stone. I just say, hey, there's no blueprint saying, hey, when your loved one is murdered, these are the steps that you follow. Okay? The
right,
government says, hey, your loved one is dead. We'll give you $6,000 to bury your child. And you're not guaranteed to even get that if they were in a gang back then. And they
so
don't give all that money up front.
right, I was just about to ask you.
Okay?
So even that process, I hear, is another re-victimization because of the questions at
Their
that
questions
time.
on the application. And I thank God. And, like I had to stand up for myself, and I always fought for myself and let them know. Please, I had to call the detective one time. We're good now, John Bartek. Because they have to make sure whatever they submit to victim services, that it doesn't state that your child was in a gang.
At that time.
At that time, whatever they write in the report, it mustn't state those things.
And we're not saying, and you're not saying, that if a child lost his life because he was in a gang, that makes anything right.
No, help the family. What are you telling me? Was he
Help.
doing any gang activity when he got shot? Suppose he was just going home and the people who was looking for him months ago saw him and shoot him. The system is not set, isn't there? Wasn't nothing. They made it so difficult. I mean, like I said, a lot of people had to step in. They gave me $3,000 up front. $3,000 is not going to bury no child in New York City. Hello? We were able to bury my son, but I'm just saying, when the time comes to get the other three, to the rest of the money, you have to submit receipt. The hell to get the money is so sad. It was so sad on top of what I was dealing with. Till I had to get somebody involved. I met this guy, Mr. Tony Herbert, knew somebody over there, and he called the office so I can get the rest of the money. Why do I have to go through that when every document you asked me for, I gave to you? You just had it sitting on your desk there, didn't care. The system is just it's just so messed up. And I tell people all the time, these shoes that we walking, I wish nobody ever has to walk in these shoes. Okay? It is, let me tell you something. Some things are a little better now, but my God, the system is broken.
Mhm.
And it has been broken for a long time. Because again, before Akil died, Maxine's son was murdered. How many years ago? Okay?
Right.
So the system been broken.
So how can we do better as a community? How can we do better to help families that's been affected by gun violence? How how does the system, how do we help to help you guys and to help the system? How do we advocate for one another?
Um, I figure that we must get united because we all want the same thing. We don't want I don't want to see no other parents at be a part of this club. And I know so many others mothers don't. We just need the system to be fair. That means, hey, putting resources into putting more resources into the people who are really truly going to do the work for survivors. Because there's so many nonprofit organizations out there, and there are so many of them that are survivors, right? Survivor-based organizations. Because when I met Maxine, she had her nonprofit, Carlton Loxley Bennett Foundation, Inc. She had that nonprofit pour some resources into Maxine so she can pour back into the mothers and into the community and into the youths. Okay, I was
Right.
able to start a nonprofit named after my son, which is called the Akil Christopher Community Center. My hope one day is to have a safe haven, a space which is a safe haven for youths, open 24 hours, that youths can come and stay there and feel safe. But one of the things I am able to do and was able to do since my son died is give away scholarships to youths, pay for
Mhm.
senior dues, buy school supplies, buy school uniform. And those are the things. If somebody calls me and I'm able to do it, those are the things that I did. Because you know why? My son was never able to graduate high school. So I wanted to make sure if some young person who is graduating high school right now, senior dues are almost $1,000 if people don't know. Okay? Some families don't even have that to pay because
Most
rent in a
definitely.
New York City is so high. So I step in and I try my best to help. And that's where we step in and help. Paying senior dues, like I said, I give away scholarship. And then one thing I ask people to do, my scholarship sometimes it's not no big set of money, it's like a $500. But tell me, if you were given $500, what would you do to make a difference in your community? Not what would you do for yourself? What would you do to make a difference in your community?
How would you give back?
How would you give it back? How would you pay it forward? And there are other, like I said, there are other survivor based organizations out there. There's organizations like Where Do We Go From Here? Like you say, there's people in throughout the borough in Queens. You know, there's Triumph After Tragedy. There's Rohan Levy Foundation Inc. There's Long Live King Kobe. So these are community-based organizations who are doing survivor work, who truly understand how to support families. Because for me, when you take the money and you pour it into these bigger organizations, I am sorry to say, sometimes we are dealing with people who have not experienced the same type of trauma as
Yes.
these survivors. And I
Yeah.
am sorry to say, sometimes I tell people this, people, the cause don't be the problem. When people become bigger than their cause, that becomes the problem. So we
Right.
need genuine people who are really truly going to support support survivors and make sure survivors are truly taken care of. Because all of these organizations that I mentioned are doing great work giving back to survivors and making sure that survivors, siblings, grandchildren, and children are taken care of. Maxine was able to make sure my kids had school uniform and school clothes to go out to school. No bigger organization did that for them, but a small non-profit organization, don't have any millions, not even thousands.
I think that what you said was right, that we need to come back as a village. We need to come back as a community. And even as far as Trendsetters is concerned, one of our main goals is to reunify the community, is to, bring the village back and or the ideology of the village. And we need to have community conversations,
real conversations too,
real
real ones
conversations that raise awareness to what's going on. We touched on so many things having a conversation with you, Natasha.
Yeah.
And we touched on the hurt, the pain, the anxiety, the depression, the everything, the trauma. And you and I even talked off camera about how people tend to have an unrealistic ideology about this type of grief.
Yeah.
And putting time constraints on, okay, you should move on by now.
Mm-hmm.
Though that happened so long ago.
Mm-hmm.
And, even talking with Maxine E. Lewis prior to having the conversation with you, made us understand that there's no time limits on this type of grief.
There isn't. There isn't no time limit, Every morning, I tell you, when I open my eyes, I say this to myself: God, I still cannot believe this is my life, but I don't allow myself to stay there. I snap out of it and get myself moving. Because I tell people don't understand what we go through. You know what it is to, to watch your son just laying there after someone put a bullet in the back of his head. Watch your child laying there. So there's no, that is a pain that is never going to go anyway. But I tell people, watch us, how we have picked ourselves up and how we're trying to make a difference and how we are trying to make sure no parent comes to this club. I triage mothers. I tell people, I've been on the phone from 1 o'clock in the morning, sometime till 3 o'clock in the morning. And I tell people all the time, I tell my sisters, and then when they call me, I am here for whatever you need. You want to talk? You can talk. You don't want to talk? Don't talk. You want to cry? Cry. But we show up and we support each other.
And that's important too, because not every story has a silver lining like yours and Maxine, where y'all were able to be strong and overcome and open up organizations and try to pour back in the community and other children that you recognize that you don't want to fall into this same path. But there's some others that haven't reached there and probably won't reach there. And to have mothers like you guys that are there on the front line and receiving those phone calls and helping them to go through whatever it is, whatever it is, wherever they are at that time, it just speaks mounds. It just speaks mounds, because some people don't recover from that.
What about the fathers? I didn't even speak. I can tell you about my Akil's dad. Yes. That was his only child. I have other children, right? wasn't with him, but that was his only child. I tell people I feel so sorry for him. You know why? Because he's barely existing. He has never left 2012. Somebody killed this man's only child. And then you know, the one person he loved more, like again, then his mother, I think, died 2 years after Akil died from pancreatic cancer. But I'm just saying to say, you know, we all grieve differently. When I see him, it is so heartbreaking just to watch him struggle through life. And you know, I have always tried to help him. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy for us because, again, I blamed him when my son died because my son was in his care. And, you know, I blamed him and I was like, you know, today I regret ever having to say that to him. But I said it to him like, you're going to have to deal with the fact that Akil died on your watch. He wasn't in my care when he got killed. And that's why sometimes I say, you know, now with me, with, you know, like I tell people with the growth, because, you know, the trauma that I've been through, and I tell people I was dealing with trauma long before Akil was murdered. And we all been dealing with trauma long before our children was murdered. But I told, you know, so my thing is with this new me, embracing this new life, you know, I tell people like, hey, now I think before I speak. I don't say things to people that I can't take back. Because I saying that to him, you know, I wonder if that, you know, kind of impacted him. Because when I see him, I found people to support me. He never found that support. Because there wasn't that much, you know, people always focus on the mothers. Nobody was really focusing on the fathers. It's now of lately people are just saying, hey, we're going to do a father's group because fathers grieve differently and siblings deal, you know, grieve differently. But nobody wasn't focusing on the fathers back then, 12 years ago. So he had nobody to help him navigate. And I couldn't help him back then because I wasn't willing to help him. I didn't give a damn about him. But now I try to make sure everything that I'm doing, I make sure that he is included and make sure when I do any great things that he is included. Even like, you know, just the other day, this year in June, after 9 years, I finally got a street code named after my son where he was killed. And I had to fight for that. When the community board denied me, people don't know you struggled, you battled. They were like, when I went to them trying to get the street code name, they were so quick to deny me. What was my son's contribution to the community? And they denied me that. But I got up there and I let them know. Let me tell you something. Y'all don't know who mother. Y'all mess with the wrong mother because I am going to promise you guys I will get that street code name. And the God that I believe in and the God that I serve, Cornelia and Evergreen, is now called Akil Christopher Way. All right? And I thank the new council member in that district who believed in me and saw my pain, Sandy Nurse, and said, Miss Christopher, I will help you get that done. And Assemblywoman Monique Waterman Chandler, can never forget her, always by my side. People, when you find people who believe in you.
She's a pillar.
What?
She's a pillar.
Yes. So when you find people who believe in you, and you know what I'm saying, like they see you, because people sometimes look at you and they don't see you. And I was like, I will get that street code named. And I did it for my son because I want people, when they pass by there, you will always remember a life was taken here.
You know,
we can go on for days about because there's so much we can do. We need to get back together. as a community. We need to start having conversations with each other. Like Maxine loved to say, I love her for that. Start loving upon each other. Get
Yeah.
back to that, where we
Yeah.
loved one another.
Yes.
Stop killing your brothers and sisters.
But again, before we can love one another, we have to learn to love.
Yeah, you have to learn to love.
And that message of love is far from what love really is right
Yeah.
now in our communities. So this is the channels that we have to go through to heal
Mm-hmm.
so that we can learn to love. I want to thank you for coming on,
Mm-hmm.
Natasha. Is there anything that you're working on that you want support from our audience, and where can they get in contact with you? Because I'm pretty sure that there are mothers out there that's going to be listening to you that don't know where to find resource and have had children that have been taken due to gun violence. What are some resources that you can share, and what are some
I mean, we're always here. We are now, me and a bunch of survivors have come together, and we're now doing our own thing, supporting survivors, and it's called Survivors Strong now. And we are doing our own thing. We're getting ready to have our annual Christmas party for survivors and siblings, which is going to be held on December 20th. Um, and I have no problem giving people my number, okay? So because I tell people I'll answer them, they can shoot me a text. My phone
is there
number,
an email that
and I
people
have an email, and my email is Akil. It's spell my son's name, Akeal, number 4, Life, life@gmail.com. And I tell people you can call me, and I tell people, call me. I'm always here to support. Tell people I'm down for getting into good trouble. 347-517-9119. So that's 347-517-9119. And I'm always here to support. I tell people I don't have a lot, but I tell people, you know what? Closed mouths don't get fed. And I know
Amen.
how to keep asking, because
Amen.
I will keep knocking on doors, because we have to support our people. We have to support our young people. They are our future. Okay? I tell people all the time, I thank God that my children were able to survive this trauma, and they're still surviving. My 18-year-old son, he's off at college now. Look at God. He was
Look
5
at
when he died, right? My 23-year-old is doing his thing, but look at God.
look at God.
But look at God, okay? And you know what? You have to allow people to find their way back to God. And that's how I tell people, I deal with God. You see, I'm talking about God now. I talk to God just like I'm having a conversation with you. And I tell him, okay, we okay, but we ain't that okay, because we still got some stuff to work out.
Right.
But he is a good God.
Amen.
Because you know what? I got up this morning, and I didn't get up all by myself. And a lot of people didn't get up today. Okay? I tell people I'm still able to have a roof over my head, put food in my mouth, put clothes on my back. And I tell people, like I said this, God gave me a purpose. People may take away money from you, but they can't take away a purpose God gave me. He gave that to me.
That's right. That's
He
right.
gave me that, and I'm shining bright. And I will continue to shine bright, because you know what? I know I have work to do.
Um, I'm going to post the Survivor Strong information.
I'm going to send you the flyer. We have a flyer.
Yeah, and
I'll send it to you.
I'll post that as well. And
Yeah.
I'm going to post the
And
Survivor.
we're looking for donations to help, because like I said, no amount is too small. Whatever you can help with, they can reach out to me, they can talk to me.
Yeah.
Again, you
And
know.
we're also going to be talking to mothers from Survivor Strong.
Yes, yes.
So, this
Um,
initiative
yes,
is
so everybody can see.
unfortunately is an ongoing initiative,
Mm-hmm.
and just know that we at Trendsetters are here for you guys in
Yeah.
any way that we can support, any way that we can come out to whatever it is that you have, however it is, and whatever we can do, we're all in. We're in
I
this
want to say
together.
thank you to you. Thank you to you for being you. Thank you, thank you for giving us this platform. Most people don't allow us to have a platform. They always want to shine. And thank you for giving us a platform to tell our story, to share our story. Okay, because again, this is a club nobody wants to belong to. I tell people this is one of the shittiest club I've ever belonged to. I tell people, but God gave me some amazing people
Thank
to
goodness.
keep me,
Thank
and
goodness.
they are keeping me. They got my back, my sisters and brothers.
I'm glad that you found the resource. I'm glad that you found a circle. That's one of the reasons why we're talking, so that
Yeah,
others that are going through this alone could know that they don't need to be alone. There's people out there, there's organizations out there, you're out there, Maxine is out there, there's
oh,
organizations that you
yes,
discussed, there's people out there that's willing to just to hear and lay a shoulder, be a
yeah,
shoulder, and non-judgmental.
yeah,
And that's really, really important at this time, that we can find a way and to eliminate gun violence.
yeah.
You know,
Enough. Mhm.
I'm supportive, but I've had enough.
Yes, enough.
I've had enough. I don't want to support any more mothers, unfortunately.
Right.
I want to see laws change.
Yeah,
I want to see things change systematically, where we don't have to endure these type of stories much longer. So I thank you for your time. I
thank
thank
you.
you for all your work in the
Thank you.
community.
Thank you.
I love you,
I
sis.
love you,
Over
sis.
here, and
And yes.
we'll
And like I
talk.
said, we're gonna do more. We're gonna get all some of these survivors out here so people could hear their story. People could
Absolutely.
see how they're turning pain, how they have turned pain into purpose. And
Yes.
even the ones who haven't turned pain, people need to hear their stories.
People need to hear their stories. People
Okay?
need to know how people actually suffer through
Right.
what's going on. I think that because we talk to so many survivors of this thing, that we are always have a good shining light.
Mm-mm.
Nah,
Mm-mm. No. We have some people who are not even doing,
right.
who are just trying their best to
As you
make it
said,
through.
holding on,
Just holding on. So,
just barely holding on.
barely holding on. And you will get to have a conversation with some of these mothers and
Yes,
you will see. But, we stand in the gap with them, letting
yes,
them know, like, hey, you think you're not doing it, but you're doing it hurting, but you're doing it
doing
because
it.
now you're at 7 months, you're at 8 months, but you're just hurting. But we are in the gap with them. So we need more people like you to give us the platform to share our story, okay? We need more people like you, and
You'll be heard.
may God continue to bless you, because
Thank
you know what?
you.
You are opening doors, and survivors need a space where they can tell their story and share their stories.
I think the community needs a space where they can share their story.
Stories.
The only way that we can understand what the community needs is by hearing the stories of the community, and it's like you said, sometimes the people that are in charge of helping the community, they don't have a firsthand understanding of what the needs are.
Are.
Trendsetters is forming a platform. We got a platform that says, hey, these are some of the needs. This is what the people are saying. This is what needs to be addressed, in hopes that they can hear and understand and say, okay, now we have a place, now we have a point, now we have something to do. Let's do it. And let's
Yeah.
get the community
Right.
healed. Let's
Hello,
get it
I
back.
am sick and tired of every time I go down the block. There's a liquor store. How about giving us some more community centers that are open 24/7?
But
Say
that
spaces,
has to do with us as well.
right?
That has to do with us as well, because there's things like community board meetings that we don't attend. And
Yeah,
there's things where we can verbalize what we've had enough with, what we're
yeah.
disgusted with going on in our communities, like gun violence. We just need to show up more, and we just need to speak up more, and
We need
we
to
need
mobilize. We need to
people more
mobilize.
accountable
Yes,
to certain
accountability.
actions and have certain conversations. So this is what we have, and this is what we're doing, and this is why we're here, and we're
Right.
going to continue as long as I can. This is what it's about. So, again, you are always welcome on this platform. You are always we're always here to support you in whatever you guys are doing. You gave us a Christmas party date, and if trendsetters can, we will show up
Right.
and help with some of that what they call it, content. So
Yes. 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 We love it. We love it. Like we
so
come.
we will be in touch, and you God bless, and you have
God bless.
enjoy your Thanksgiving,
I
and
will. You too. Please
you
give
take
mom a
care.
hug, okay?
Okay, I
All right.
will.
Thank you, Heidi.
Bless, be blessed.
All right. Thank you, darling.